heard that
in the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
So we're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast live edition. It's Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we got my man Zach Blackerby and Daryl Damprich, and we're ready to talk about Auburn recruiting, this whole quote-unquote gamble, if you want to call it that it seems like Auburn's kind of going out on a limb led by John Cohen 100%. He took ownership of it, and it seems like Hugh Freeze is okay letting him take ownership of it. We're going to dive into all that and ask questions, answer questions. So if you got questions, definitely hit it in the chat and we will discuss those. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to roback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. If you want to get ready, it's already summer, so you're behind if you're not already ready for it. But they got swim trunks, they got polos, all the summer gear you need. You can even go ahead and kind of get ready for football season if you want with some Auburn licensed apparel. Check them out. Show them some love. It's roback.com. Guys, I asked you before we got on, should we assume everyone knows what we're talking about? And you said no. We need to kind of go back over what was said on Wednesday and then jump into the conversation. Right off the bat, this is not breaking news. Auburn recruiting sucks right now. There's nothing fun to talk about. You're losing kids to rival schools. You're losing commitments. It just seems like ever since this NIL rev share thing went through, as a matter of fact, right before it went through, Auburn's class ranking was 13th in the country. And then now you're down in the 80s. So a lot of questions were asked at an Auburn event on Wednesday night. What's going on to Hugh Freeze, to John Cohen? And John Cohen basically put it out there that, hey, there are some things that are being done elsewhere meaning the competition, that we are not doing right now. Okay. We are not going to guarantee NIL deals on top of rev share because we believe our interpretation of the rule and maybe some guidelines that we were given states that that'll count against our salary cap, rev share cap, whatever you want to call it. And there's been a ton of conversation around that. And John basically said that come August 1st, we will see. That's when you can actually give a kid a writing on an offer in writing. Come August 1st, we will see if all of these promises, if all of these numbers thrown out there can actually be put on paper and justified on paper, because we know where we're going to be. We'll see if everything that's being said out there is actually going to hold up when you can actually put pen to paper, at least in the form of a written offer. So there's been a ton of conversation about it. Haven't talked to you guys yet about it. So I wanted to get your take, each one, on that whole scenario, and just overall how you feel. And what are we going to talk about until August 1st?
Well, I mean, this is going to be the topic of SEC Media Days. I don't think there's any question about it. This time a week from now, Daryl and I will be in Atlanta getting ready for the week, and I'm sure we'll run into other media outlets and media members, and this will be the main thing that's discussed. I think there's a world where John Cohen can be right, but it'll still the wrong approach in how to handle all of this, because these third-party NIL deals, whether the argument is do they count against the cap or not? And to me, there seems to be too many loopholes where I'm just not trusting this governing body of this, NIL clearinghouse to do the due diligence and to cover every single deal that comes through. So I think John Cohen could be right by the letter of the law, but I don't know if that necessarily means it's going to be enforced that way.
What do you think?
That's the key point, is that, look, this staff didn't forget how to recruit overnight. There's only one thing that's happened since January to now. The answer is right in front of us. People can talk about Auburn having a losing season and all that kind of stuff and getting recruited against. That's bull crap. Auburn had the best transfer portal haul that it's had in years since it's been around, since the portal's been around. This decision, this NIL, what came down and the whole revenue sharing cap has changed the game. And what I have heard from somebody that used to coach in the SEC that I reached out to a couple days ago, he said that exactly what Zach says. Cohen is right by the letter of the law, but might be wrong by might be wrong of doing Auburn's fan base. Meaning, what he's heard is that if you're interpreting it a certain way and there's a clearinghouse there are a lot of schools that said this is too big for the clearinghouse to go after all these schools at the same time. Auburn's in the minority, make no mistake about it. So they just don't feel confident that the NCAA has any teeth. They're going to do anything about it. And there's way too many schools that are handling it different than Auburn is. So they don't feel like, there's anything that's going to be done because it would be overwhelming. That being said, August 1st is a very, very important demarcation line, like you mentioned, Kyle, where the checks come due, so to speak. Will it be too late? Will Auburn be able to react? That's the key.
So August 1st is important because that's when you can officially offer these NIL deals and put it on paper. Because right now they technically don't mean anything. Much like a verbal commitment doesn't mean anything until December.
Right.
My thing is, we're not going to know on August 1st, one, what these kids are offered, two, what they necessarily look like when it comes down to, we'll use Cohen's example that he talked about in Alexander City last week. If a kid's offered $800,000 and $400,000 is from the school, that'll be part of the rev share pot, and $400,000 is from third-party NIL, he's saying the third-party NIL should and will count towards the cap. But my thing is, like, I'm predicting that a lot of schools aren't going to have the $400,000 from the third-party NIL as part of that offer.
Right.
And to me, it's like, I don't think it's going to go that way. I could be wrong. Honestly, I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it going that way.
What do you mean?
Why August 1st is important? Let me clarify, because that's a great question. Why it's important is, though, that Auburn is going to be watching closely. And if what happens, Zach, happens what you said, and it doesn't go that way, then Auburn will say, okay, gloves off, let's go, and completely change the philosophy and the approach. That's why it's such an important date. Because the proof will be in the pudding at that time. I get what you're saying. We may not know, but all these other schools might.
Yeah. So I want to clarify something really quick too about something Zach said. There's been a ton of conversation back and forth saying that a lot of people saying Cohen's wrong about his interpretation of that NIL counting against the cap. And his specific example to what Zach was saying is, if you offer a kid $400,000 or $800,000, 400 of it comes from rev share and 400 of it comes from NIL. What he's saying is that 400 will come up against the cap. But there are people that are saying, rightfully so, third-party deals don't count against the cap. So what is Cohen saying here? Okay. The rule is, if a third-party deal is, what is the word they use? Facilitated. If a third-party deal is facilitated through the university or closely associated members of the university, if it's facilitated, Playfly is a good example. That's the Auburn Sports Properties. Okay. If Auburn Sports Properties sells something that can go towards NIL, it would go towards some kind of third party, whatever. It would go towards the cap. Okay. So what Cohen is saying is, if Georgia right now is giving an offer that includes 50% rev share and 50% NIL, there's no way the NIL portion of it can't be university facilitated at that point in time. So I think what he's hoping is that, like Zach or Dap just said, the numbers they're going to get on August 1st are going to be excluding NIL. So the question is, what happens when players or prospective students see that? Is that going to create a big enough ripple in and of itself to get things going back in Auburn's direction? Like, I guess that's the biggest question. What happens after that revelation, so to speak?
Well, if Auburn sees that Cohen didn't interpret it right and that it wasn't counting against the cap on August 1st, then Auburn can do whatever it wants to do to counter and come back to these people that left and flipped because of this. We know why. It was because of the NIL offers, and say, oh, well, I guess this is what we can offer now. That's what I'm saying is, either way, if Cohen's right, there's going to be some guys flipping to Auburn because there's going to be some promises made that aren't kept. If he's wrong, Auburn can say gloves are off. We'll just do what everyone else is doing then. We didn't interpret it right. Now, there's a public relations nightmare in that. If you have an athletic director that's running your athletic department and you misinterpreted something like this and you got it wrong for 2 months, that's horrible. That's a horrible look. It just is. That's a lack of leadership, in my opinion.
Especially when it's going to be easy to say they don't want to give you money. They don't want to pay you money. They're looking for ways to pay you less. I think if they hinted the other way, it'd be less of an issue, honestly.
Yeah, we got a super chat, NH3425. I'm trusting Cohen and Freeze, but AU finished in the top 15 in 2013 after 0 SEC wins top 15 in 2013 after 0 SEC wins in 2012. Something has to give with the 2026 class. I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but I think
I don't know if that, I don't want to try to ever, I would like to double check that. I don't think Auburn had, after that absolute debacle in Chiswick's last season, I don't remember them having a top 13 class. Maybe they did. Maybe Gus Malzahn came in and with with all his recruiting guys that he had on the staff and did pull one. That's a great catch if they did. I just recall that.
NH3425, tell me if you think I'm interpreting your question wrong, but it seems like what you're saying is
10th stat. They had the 10th class in 2013.
Okay. Well,
it seems like what you're saying is Auburn has recruited successfully in spite of a lot of adversity. So this seems way worse. Like, in other words, this seems way worse than even when we've been put a really poor product on the field. So maybe there's something more going on than what we're leading on. Maybe what's leading on. Maybe there's something deeper going on. I think that may be what you're trying to insinuate. And the only thing I would add to that is
I think he's saying it like rock bottom. Auburn was still able to recruit.
Correct.
And there's no reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's no reason Auburn should have a class at this point that's in the 80s. That's insane.
Well, I mean, that's easy to say now, but I mean, when you're so far, depending on how far you're off right now, NIL wise, like nobody cares anymore about tradition. Nobody cares anymore about, just get them to campus and they'll fall in love with Auburn. To me, it's 90% about money right now. So I don't think what happened in the past really plays into anything that goes on today as far as recruiting goes. That's my take on that.
Yeah, and I'm on an island on this, I guess. But I mean, it's not like Auburn is like 35th and all the teams that they play are in the top, 10 to 15. It's when I looked earlier today on 247, they're 85th. Let's see if it's changed. I don't know why it would have. Yeah, or 86th, excuse me. 86. Somebody must have got a recruit in front of us. But it's not like we're just on the outside. I mean, guys, the teams ahead of us, Texas State, Tulsa, East Carolina, Idaho, Virginia Tech, and Temple. It's not like we're close.
No, I think to take a line from Dap, I think two things can be true at once.
Okay.
We've missed and we're way off of where we should be, even with whatever we've self hamstrung of how do you say hamstrung ourselves
I think you nailed
with.
it. I think you nailed it.
I think we should be better, but I think they're also that has played into it both. I think both of it kind of plays into this whole thing.
Well, and I think what he put in the chat, the point that I got from it is, even when the most awful seasons happen on the field with Auburn, they're able to still be respectable recruiting. So this is a completely different animal. It kind of goes to what I said to open up the show. Obviously, there is something really, really different that's going on that actually makes me feel like it could be an easy fix. Like if it was winning, you can't fix that unless you win. If it was Hugh Freeze, the rumors of him stepping down, you can't overcome that. If it's a clerical misinterpretation of revenue sharing, you can fix it. And I get it. You have 3 or 4 months to turn the ship around.
Yeah, and I do love, and I bet this was strategic on Cohen's part. Like, let me do this because one, it's the AD. It makes sense for him to talk about it publicly. But if he's wrong, Freeze can then say, hey, I was just doing what my boss told me to do. I'm able to offer you this now. We're good to go. We're good to go. And I think they put Freeze in a situation where he can save face. If they do say, oh, clerical issue, we can pivot. Here's the money. Let's go. Let's rebuild this recruiting class. I do like how they handled that publicly.
See, here's my thing. I don't think there is a clerical error. I don't think there is any misinterpretation of the rule. I don't think we find out that someone made a mistake in their understanding of anything. What I think we're going to find out is, which is the key to all of this, is what is the definition of an institutional facilitated third-party NIL deal? I think that's going to be the key to all of this.
But isn't that loophole? Doesn't that seem, Kyle, like to be a mile wide?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where I'm getting at. It seems like the success and failure of this current recruiting class is depending on everybody else to follow the rules. Like everybody else has to follow the rules the exact same way that you're following it for it to work out. If there's any gray area whatsoever, and you got to live in the gray, in my opinion, to be successful, that to me is what is going to make or break this strategy or, guidelines that were given or whatever. It's going to be how the definition of institutional facilitated. I think that's what's going to be the biggest thing argued between now and signing day, I guess.
Well, my question would be this then. NIL, when it first got rolled out, right out of the gate, a lot of schools jumped into the gray area. It was not activated and used like it was intended to be used. Auburn had no problem playing the game at that point the way it wasn't intended. You guys know it, and I know it, that it wasn't supposed to be used for high school kids to come on campus, for high school kids to commit. It was name, image, and likeness. Once you were a player, there was an exchange of services and products. It stopped doing that pretty early. Auburn didn't sit idly by and stand firm and go, nope, we're not getting in the game unless you do this, sign out this many autographs. They jumped right in with everybody else. And the other thing, I've looked into it, maybe you guys can tell me, that I'm concerned about from the basketball side. This gigantic basketball tournament that Auburn's playing in, that's all NIL driven, that players era tournament that everyone's excited. That money is supposed to be all NIL and go all back to the school. How is that going to get capped?
Oh, that's interesting.
I think that would be the textbook definition of a third-party deal.
Okay.
I think there could be, because that is not something that Auburn connected the players tournament with. Insert player name. Like that is the players that players era tournament, whatever, reached out to Auburn with a prize pool at the end. I think that would be kind of the textbook definition of a third-party deal. We got another super chat really quick. I'm assuming we overpaid for our roster the last 2 to 3 years since we didn't have winning seasons. Shouldn't we hope Cohen is wrong? If he's right, then all of our money is already in the roster, right? I think that's a really good question. And I think that may be a little bit why they've talked about this class being smaller than usual. Maybe this class, you only look at signing 16 or 18 guys because just like Lee said, now all that money you spent, the suck tax going to come back and bite you a little bit if you're not able to finagle those numbers, because it is going to work against you on the cap. Again, I don't think that's what's happening here, but I do think that is going to be a hurdle that Auburn's going to have to, is going to face in the very near future. And then we got another one from our boy Thomas Jones. We all know winning cures a recruiting class, win on the field, and just watch the class go up. How much are you in on that? How much do you buy in on that? That has been a very common thread that's been, talked about quite a bit.
Go ahead, Zach.
I mean, I think it helps some. I don't think it's the end all be all. I think you could, compete for a national championship, but if you're not going to pay competitively, then it would not come.
And you could be 10-22 the last 4 years and not have a winning season in 4 years and have 2 top 10 classes like Auburn just had too. Exactly. So, there's and I get what he's saying. And look, the directive and the focus seem to be, and I could be wrong, you guys can checkmate me on this. There seemed to be a shift in January that, okay, we've already put a lot of money into the future. And this narrative that the money's not there or that people are holding out isn't true. The money is there, right? But spending it and using it is a different thing. I think Auburn completely decided this at the beginning of this calendar year that this roster has to get better immediately. It's one thing to get a bunch of 5 stars who are going to play for you 2 or 3 years from now. We got to get better immediately. And they poured a lot of money, guys. They went out and got 4 starters in January: quarterback, receiver, and 2 offensive tackles.
Yeah, I mean, major positions too. I mean,
and
some of the most important positions in the game.
Yeah. I mean, so if that's the issue, is it okay? We got to get better right away. We got to start pouring money into the here and now. I think sometimes we all look for the magic 8-ball answer, the elixir that says, this is it. This is the reason, when it could be a variety of a couple of things. It's never just one thing, guys. I think it could be a combination of 2, 3, 4 things. But I do think – go ahead.
Sorry, Daryl. No, you finish.
No, but I do think that we'll know by the time the season starts, we'll have a better grasp of Auburn's strategy in this than we do right now.
Do you guys think that it's fair that the next few months and how this is handled will be directly tied and correlate with how John Cohen and his tenure as AD will be remembered?
That's a really good question. I've actually had that conversation with several people that talked about, hey, this could be a defining moment in his short career at Auburn. And I would just ask, what actual moment are we talking about? Are we talking about, is he right or wrong? If that's what's
I don't think it
define
matters if he's right or wrong. I think it matters is if Auburn doesn't transition well or not. Because once again, I think he can be right. But if it doesn't matter and he's not looking elsewhere and it's am I the only person that's right now?
Then he's like, screw it. Then I'm just going to jump. I think that's what's going to happen. Zach, you've just nailed it. If he looks around on August 1st and goes, am I the only one that's going to play by the rules? Or am I the only one that's going to do this right? Well, forget it. If I am, boom, game on. And we know that when the gloves come off with Redmond and Hugh, we'll have enough time. Auburn will have enough time to pivot.
But do you think how this is handled, let's assuming a pivot is even needed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be. Let's assume that it is. I mean, how it's handled in the transition. I mean, is that going to? I mean, I think it's going to define a lot of ADs at a lot of schools' tenures.
I think
right now, honestly, how they handle this.
I think it honestly, if you pivot fast enough and you show the success afterwards, I think it honestly could look even better for him. Like he kept
Maybe so.
everybody. He's like, hey, I was on an SEC teleconference and y'all told us the guidelines. You know what I mean? Like we y'all gave us the guidelines. The SEC, y'all told us the rules. I'm following the rules. So if we're like Dap said, hey, if it's not going to work out this way, if we're not going to go by the rules that we were given, you know, a lot of it's talked about his interpretation. It's been pretty clear recently that we found out, hey, these are what the SEC guidelines were given to not only Auburn, but several other schools. So, hey, if these are the rules you gave us and you're not going to enforce them or you're not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire, then, hey, let's get in the mud and get dirty. Like Auburn's shown since Hugh's been here and this recruiting apparatus has gotten going, they've shown that they're willing to take the gloves off and get dirty. So I think it's more about that. What direction do you go after August 1st? If it's hard line, we're going to make it work with the guidelines we're given and we continue to get our teeth kicked in. Boy, oh boy, you're talking about you could have a very quick tenure.
I think at that point, Auburn's going to start making more noise. You know, there's an unwritten rule that you don't – everyone does what everyone needs to do, and I don't want to use the word snitch or point out somebody else's fallacies. But if August 1st rolls around and Auburn's getting its teeth kicked in, they've got two choices. They either start jumping up and down and screaming and saying, hey, this is what we were supposed to do, and we're not doing this. ABC's not doing it. Or they're going to say, okay, because here's the thing. It's not like you have to go out and start from square one. I suspect that a lot of these players that flipped know where Auburn is and probably have Auburn probably has them with some sort of understanding that, hey, if we can get if we change in August 1st, you come back to the fold. You know, you've already committed to us. You know what we're all about. That's a lot easier than going out and trying to recruit a kid from scratch.
I agree. And Hugh mentioned that.
You can get 5 back just like that.
Yeah. Hugh mentioned relationships with the players and the families, and he feels good about that. And he all but basically said what you just said. Like at any point in time, we feel like we can go back and get this thing going in the right direction. So I got a question for each of you. Let's say John Cohen is one extreme, okay? He's the one extreme. No, we're only going to talk rev share. You handle NIL when you get here. And then you have other schools that are, we're going to get you NIL and we're going to get you rev share. That basically, by the letter of the law, is a violation. Like, what is the right way to be treading water here? Like, what is the right way to be handling this? Like I said, if John Cohen is the extreme one way and then let a rip tater chip is the other way, what's the right way? What's the middle ground where Auburn could have some success or start picking up a little bit more momentum, I guess?
I don't know if there is a middle ground on this. I mean, it's either you're doing what you believe is true and the right thing to do long-term, or you're not. And clearly they're doing what they think is the right thing to do long-term. And to answer your question, as far as the gray area, I don't know, or the middle ground, I don't know if there is like true middle ground. It's either you're doing what you think are the rules or you're not.
I agree 100%. If you straddle the fence, you get poked in areas you don't need to get poked. And so, you know, you're either in or you're out. And Auburn will decide on August 1st. I think that there will be a seismic shift one way or the other. And I think that's why everyone just needs to stay patient. Again, if Auburn's right and some people start coming back to the fold in schools like Florida State, and yeah, by the way, I mentioned them by name because there's some things going on. If they're wrong and you start seeing kids decommit left and right, you'll know exactly why. If they don't decommit right away, and a couple weeks in, 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, you start seeing a bunch of kids come back to the fold, you'll know Auburn decided we're going to do what everyone else is doing. It's not going to get enforced. It's not being interpreted that way. We're in.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Talk about the Texas Tech kid, okay? Mm-hmm. There's a Texas Tech offensive lineman that just supposedly signed or either agreed to an NIL deal. And what number do you see? $5.1 million. That's what you see out there. Well, Then you come to find out, you dig down a little bit deeper, and only about a half of that or less over 3 years is actual rev share dollars. And the rest is NIL and incentives. And then there was wording in there about after you renegotiate, like there was even some renegotiate language in there. So clearly the numbers that are being thrown out there, I can't wait to see what happens when when August 1st actually does get here, because you see that right there. That's almost 60% fluff, like 60% just monopoly money. We just threw something out there that more than likely this kid's never going to see. So
guys, do we really
there's got to be some middle ground though. Like if that's happening, there's got to be something you can do in the middle instead of saying you can get absolutely nothing to, hey, we're going to give you $5.1 million, which everybody knows is BS. There's got to be something you can do in the middle to make it a little bit more enticing, right?
Well, I mean, I think I go back to, do we really think that 2 5-star kids that were ranked in the top 20 in the nation, one just committed to Sacramento State and one just committed to Syracuse? I mean, I don't, in what world, and look who they beat out for them. Do we not think that there is a definite, complete, extreme position being taken by schools, and there isn't really a middle ground? One way or the other, there's two extreme ways of thought when you see things like that.
It's got to be. It's got to be completely. I mean,
and can I just say this? The frustrating part, Zach, I want you to respond after me. We're getting ready to go to SEC Media Days, and then the season's going to start. And I have, followed college football for a very, very long time. This is frustrating as crap to have to talk about and figure out, because 60 to 70% of it, you have to research. It's confusing. It's
you have
not
like a law degree.
Yeah, that really is a little bit disappointing too. It really is, that it has to be this difficult.
Yeah, and I think the difficulty we've got ADs at universities that are unsure and disagreeing about what things are. That's a problem. That's a problem. And it goes back to, the core issue that was there when the NCAA appeared to have more teeth than it even does now, is it comes from a lack of leadership. There is no Roger Goodell of college football. And I think, we've seen, Greg Sankey, step up from the SEC point of view as much as as he can, but he can't speak on behalf of NIL for college football, right? I mean, he's limited. He's the commissioner of a conference, not the sport. So to me, I think it comes down to a lack of leadership at the highest level.
I've been hearing this a lot. We kind of touched on this earlier, but just get y'all's take on this. This is from James Rutan. We didn't go from being a bag school, I guess throwing bags, to being the only school erring on the fringe side of caution by themselves overnight. This is clearly an issue of boosters holding out until they see results. I don't see that whatsoever. Just from the people that I talk to, as a matter of fact, I know that there's sort of like a contingency plan going on behind the scenes right now if August 1st doesn't shake out in our favor. And when I say that, to the point where the NIL portion of it isn't being interpreted the way that it was said it would be interpreted. Okay. So I don't think there's a money problem at Auburn at all. Period. I
think there's a money problem in letting the funds be released. You see what I'm saying? There's a pool, there's a pot, but I don't think the money's being spent. It's not being allocated right now. It's not being allowed to be touched or used. But I think there is a reservoir of money that's there from boosters. And if you're a booster, do you say, I'm going to wait to see how this whole thing plays out before I give any more? Not the winning part, but just how Auburn's going to use the funds that I give. I mean, that would be prudent.
Yeah, I think Auburn's told people, wait till till we need you. Basically, we'll call you when we need you. And I think that can happen like that, and I don't think there will be any issue.
That sounded like a lot of girls I dated in high school, and that brought back me some PTSD. Dap, I'll call you when I need you, when I need a ride, when I need a meal. So that hurt.
Ouch.
I bet you're always there though when they called.
We just had a flashback.
I was.
Zach, do you think there's a money problem?
No, I don't.
No. All right. So last question, and then we'll get off. August 1st rolls around, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but August 1st rolls around, and we find out is the interpretation of that third-party deal and where it comes from. Maybe we were being a little bit too strict on it. Okay. So August 1st, how does that happen? And then what does Auburn do right off the bat to fix it?
I don't know. Dap, you can have this one.
I think that Cohen gets probably a private reprimand from the president of the school. I believe that would happen, where he would pull him in and say, hey, you have absolutely taken ownership of this, and it was misinterpreted, it was misunderstood, and it could have hamstrung us and set us back. I think that happens. I don't know if someone gets fired over it, but I believe in contingency plans, and I believe in workarounds, and I believe in people doing things, working around athletic directors and that kind of thing, and having something in place as a parachute. So I think that you'll see a quick pivot, a quick swivel, and I think Auburn will be fine.
I do too. I think after all's said and done, I think they can make a really big shift if needed in that direction. And contrary to what was stated earlier, I think the money's there.
Where's Auburn? Well, where does Auburn's class finish on early signing day?
I'll make a prediction. You go first.
Well, here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem. It's going to be a small class. So that's the tough part. You got to have at least 18, I think, kids. You have to, the way those calculations work for each site, it's 18 or 20 kids before you get to before it starts really calculating your total points. So if Auburn's somewhere around 16 to 18 kids, it's probably going to be a lower class in general just because of that. So I would probably say top 25 would be, maybe top 20 would be, I think, where Auburn will probably end up with just still got to have a pretty good season.
I'd say top 20, but your average star ranking will be top 15, maybe top 10 if they only have 16 kids.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fair.
I'm similar to you. I'm a little lower. I'm 25 to 30-ish, but I'm with y'all. I think the quality of player in the class will be solid.
The average star ranking, that's a good one. The average player ranking.
See, I look at that more.
They've got some dudes that are universally agreed upon how underrated they are. But yeah, I mean, we'll see.
We'll also see some kids, I think, that are committing recently, maybe not be in this class if that starts happening. If you only take 16, you're going to have to be a lot more discriminatory, you know what I'm saying, and who you get. So,
gotcha. Well, you only got 6, so you can't discriminate too much.
Well, there's
or maybe 7 now.
Yeah, I can't see from now until December.
If we process any of the guys that have stuck through all this stuff, I think that's wrong.
Personally. I do too. But I mean,
you're right.
Yeah.
I think that would happen, but yeah, I think that would be wrong.
Yep.
I don't know how many of these guys you want to get rid of, to be totally honest.
I'm kind of there with you. I'm kind of there with you.
I really dig Kentrell White. I think I'm watching his film, and I know I'm going to get killed for this, but I'm watching his film, and I don't see really that much difference between him and CD Morgan. When you're talking about size and the way he moves after the catch.
Yeah.
Sure. He's a tight end, right? He's a tight end.
But he lines up at wide receiver.
Yeah.
He plays receiver. He plays receiver at his school. I don't really see a ton of difference, if I'm being just completely honest. So I'm just throwing that out there. And,
all right,
those kids don't get a lot of eyes a lot of times until they get offers. So you may see that ranking explode. Guys, thanks for joining. Let us know what you think about everything that's going on. What direction do you think Auburn should go in? And we will talk again soon. Zach, tell them where they can find you and support you.
Yeah, right here on this very channel. Brad Lawn, I do Village Vice 3 times a week. Be sure to check that out.
That same for you.
Wednesdays and Fridays, Locked on Auburn with my man Zach Blackerby.
Absolutely. We'll be back again tomorrow and every day this week. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening and drive home safely.